to Straight Bat, my weekly blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Let's today focus on an issue which has been dominating the national headlines, the farmer agitation that has spread now from Punjab and reached the doors of the national capital. And let me start with a question that is often posed on television channels. Are these really farmers who are blocking the road and protesting? Is a question often being asked on primetime news TV by, dare I say, many who've rarely stepped out of an air-conditioned studio. They are Congress-sponsored groups, claim government spokespersons. They are Khalistani sympathizers who want to undermine the Indian state, says the BJP's IT media cell. The first theory can be easily countered. If the Congress really had the resources and organizational might to organize such a farmer protest for over a week now, the party wouldn't be reduced to just 52 MPs in parliament. To demonize the protesting farmers as Khalistanis is equally problematic. It reveals to my mind a toxic mindset that stereotypes any anti-government protest as necessarily anti-national. The Punjabi Jat farmer's attachment to his land is no different to, let's say, the Gujarati middle class's attachment to the stock market. You bring in stock market reform that sparks off any kind of fear, real or imaginary, over future profits, and just watch what happens in an Ahmedabad, Rajkot, or dare I say a Surat. A handful of people who may speak in support of a Bhindranwale's legacy, for example, can hardly be seen as enough reason to damn a movement that has now acquired a certain momentum of its own, with dozens of small and large farmer unions participating in it, and suggest in any way that this is evidence of Sikh separatism. That would be very dangerous. Which brings me back to our original question. Just who are these protesters who are braving the falling winter temperatures, the police's water cannons, and are gherawing the national capital? What if one suggested that many of these agitationists are faceless, ordinary citizens of this country who are simply worried and angry over a new legal framework that could change their working lives? It isn't as if the Punjab farmer is impoverished. The average land holding in Punjab is about 3.7 hectares, well above the national average. It isn't as if the new farm laws are going to destroy the lives of these farmers. In fact, many of them could eliminate the middleman and actually benefit from it. In fact, it's the manner in which the laws are being pushed through a brute majority in parliament without any standing committee oversight, with minimal consultation with stakeholders, that lies, to my mind, at the root of the problem of this confrontation. When even the centre's long-standing ally, the Akali Dal, was forced to withdraw from the government, there was little attempt made to reach out to them and placate them in any manner. Politicians have their own vested interests in breaking up relationships. But what of the average farmer who is in a distant mandi, who feels uncertain about his future? They are the ones who the government has failed to address. Truth is, a government that rules by Diktat is fundamentally feared and mistrusted by affected citizens. When Manmohan Singh or Vajpayee ji, or before that Narasimha Rao, were pushing through reform, they were constrained by minority governments or coalition governments. So they had to initiate reforms through stealth or attempt to build a consensus. The Modi model of governance and reform, on the other hand, is built around what can best be described as a strongman state. Take it or leave it, my way or the highway. And there is rule by firman with no discussion or dialogue. Then be it a hugely disruptive move like demonetization, or indeed a Central Vista project that's going to change the national capital skyline, there is little space in the Modi model for any pre-decision conversation. Recall the revocation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir, or indeed the passage of the Citizenship Amendment Act last year. In each instance, dissenting voices are stifled, in some cases even criminalized. For example, the protesting women of Shaheen Bagh were branded and dubbed as Pakistani agents, and in this present climate of a certain majoritarianism, it is easy to target a minority group as anti-national. So far from reaching out to any of those women, you actually had union ministers who were even threatening and intimidating them with the Goli Maro rhetoric, if you recall, during an election in Delhi. Little attempt therefore was made to strike a meaningful dialogue with any of these protesters, whether it's in Jammu and Kashmir or whether it's in Shaheen Bagh, because these are not seen as the BJP's vote bank. You could argue that Punjab is a state which is also not a BJP state. The danger is that it's not about losing the Sikh vote. It's about losing the Sikh community. That's why you're seeing across Punjab, cutting across all divisions, Punjabis, Sikhs are coming together on this issue. More importantly, farmers are a crucial vote bank. Forget about the Sikhs, this is about farmers now. Prime Minister Modi has made an attempt in every speech to reach out to the Garib Kisan. He keeps talking about the Garib Kisan. It's a core constituency. The government's media machine points out repeatedly how the Modi government has hiked the minimum support price, how it has provided small and marginal farmers with rupees 6,000 under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi, an annual income. There is also a little doubt that a large number of farmers have voted for the BJP in recent elections. You don't win two successive majorities without the support of the Kisan. Yes, Punjab is an exception, a state, one North Indian state that has resisted in a way the Modi wave. The danger, of course, is, and I think that's why the government has reached the dialogue table, is because a farmers' movement can easily spiral out of control. That's why the government has come to the dialogue table. No dialogue was considered necessary with the anti-CAA protesters when Article 370 is repealed in Jammu and Kashmir, because, as I said, those who were disturbed or disaffected by it were not part of the Modi government's political calculus in any way. They didn't threaten the center in any way. The Kisan is different. A protest which begins in Punjab can easily spread, as it already is, to neighboring Haryana, which is BJP ruled, and where the BJP has a tenuous majority. It can spread to Western UP, which will go to elections a little over a year from now, and it can spread potentially to all states with large farmer populations. Political leaders in the Kashmir Valley can be jailed. Student protesters in JNU can be browbeaten. Human rights activists can be arrested under the UAPA and charged with sedition. Shaheen Bagh women can be ignored or threatened. But an angry and restless farmer cannot be ignored. He has to be assuaged. Which is why the events of the last fortnight provide a clue, in a sense, to where the real opposition, in a sense, to a domineering government like the Modi government lies, a majority government like this lies. It doesn't lie in the political opposition, which is weak and directionless and which spends most of its time in Twitter debates. It doesn't lie in institutions that are being emasculated over times, like the courts, dare I say. It doesn't lie in a mostly pliant media, which has, with few exceptions, lost the capacity to tell truth to power. It doesn't lie in the urban elite or the urban middle class, which is too hypnotized by the whole idea of political Hindutva, by laser shows that are conducted by the ghats of Varanasi, the spectacle of it all, and by the muscularity of a larger-than-life leader. The opposition, my friends, to domineering governments that rule by decree, or by Diktat as I called it, lie in the sizable groups of ordinary Indians, the so-called Aam Aadmi and Aurat who do not like to be taken for granted. Mr. Modi still remains the most popular leader in the country by some distance. But personal popularity does not mean that you ram through legislation without, in a sense, taking people into confidence who are going to be affected. A more consensual approach is sometimes needed to remove the anxieties and misapprehensions of those who are really affected, especially when you're going in with dramatic and far-reaching reform. A one-sided diktat is no answer to when people need to first be comforted and convinced into accepting a new law. The truth is, it is farmers who are feeling aggrieved and left out or, in a way, targeted today. Who knows who else will feel aggrieved tomorrow? As a postscript, while the entire focus of the Delhi-centric national media is on the farmer agitation because it's on the doors of the national capital, how many of you are aware that activists, citizens and environmental groups in South Goa are staging day and night protests against infrastructure projects that are threatening the fragile ecosystem, the forests and the wildlife sanctuaries of Goa? In a land of a million mutinies, my friends, it is these so-called small protests of citizens, activists that are in a way the only challenge to executive high-handedness and overreach. Think about it. That was the Straight Path.